I bought an Xbox One for this. Well, specifically I bought an Xbox One, henceforth known as the X-Boner, simply because, as I'm reviewing video games now, I suppose I should cover all three major systems. I mean, the Wii U is officially not going to give us fuck all to talk about, and I can only review so many PS4 games before some asshole shouts, "Tobias!" So, in the interest of fairness and completeness, and being too broke to just nut up and buy a PC, I finally caved and paid around $200 for the privilege of touching a refurbished 500 gig previous model boner. Hashtag legit gamer boy. Truth be told, I've never been much of an Xbox guy. I haven't even owned a Microsoft console since the original Xbox. I played the hell out of the first two Halos, Deus Ex Invisible War, this game called Armed and Dangerous. Does anybody else remember that? But really, not too much else. I skipped the Xbox 360 entirely, primarily because the PS3 could play Blu-ray movies, while the 360 was just full of dead formats and red rings. But my friends always told me that I was missing out on titles like Mass Effect, Dead Rising, and Fable 3, even though all those games eventually got PS ports, or just turned out to be a load of old piss. But as a result of my being stingy, I didn't just miss out on Kinect garbage and Peter Molyneux's Downward Spiral, I missed out on all four previous Gears of War games. And these were considered kings of the console back in their day, even though to me they just looked like a lot of brown and shouting, so I picked up Gears 4 as kind of a test. Did I make a wise purchase in finally jumping back into the Microsoft bandwagon? Or is the boner limp, underwhelming, and kind of a pain in the ass? Ladies, you know what I'm talking about here, right? After beating it last week, it's kind of half and half, I guess? Ladies, I know you know what I'm talking about there. Don't get me wrong, overall, the game was a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. The graphics are really gorgeous, and the environments you find yourself in are often varied, colorful, and blissfully detailed. Some of the enemy and creature designs were pretty interesting as well. I mean, you start the game fighting robots, drones, and some dungeon master fuckwit who keeps throwing his D20s at you, before moving on to more fleshy, monstery, good old blood and gutsy kind of stuff. I can only take out my aggression on Rob the Robot for so long before it starts to get kind of boring, you know what I mean? And the game had a pretty decent sense of atmosphere overall. It starts off unassuming with a fairly light tone until the fleshier creatures start showing up, kidnapping people, and you have to, spoiler alert, ride an elevator to hell. I mean, the game goes from light action romp to straight up horror, and it's kind of nice how they transition into that. I mean, the horrifying element really does kind of sneak up on you. Once they introduce the larger creatures that swallow you up anime girl style, I'm kind of glad the camera switches to an exterior shot once that happens. I've seen enough hentai to know where that's going. The tension and suspense in trying to bring down those things feels intense and provides a pretty meaty challenge. Like, combat overall is pretty well balanced, I feel. And the ending battles, in which, well, I don't want to spoil, but if you've ever seen the end of any decent Power Rangers episode, it should feel pretty familiar, was really freaking awesome, especially since I spent most of the game outnumbered, underpowered, and outgunned. You know, I finally got the opportunity to stick it back up some mutant bug creature ass, and it felt really satisfying. I can say I certainly had a decent amount of fun with the game, but at the same time, I also feel like I'm not the intended audience, per se. Let me put it this way. When you buy Gears 4, you're given for free 4 download codes to access every single previous game in the series. An extremely generous touch, but I couldn't help but feel like maybe that was a touch too generous. Almost like they wanted me to catch up on the series' previous games before jumping into this one. Which I didn't. So suck it. It left me kinda confused. I mean, I've been hearing people praise the prologue, which is supposed to bring new players up to speed, but I'll be fucked if I could tell you what was going on. It mostly just consisted of people telling me they were more important than me, going behind a door, and then leaving me outside to fight bug demons until I died. The game even went as far as to tutorialize a weapon that never shows up in this game, is only used once, and is never mentioned again. The fuck am I playing? Assassin's Creed? And there were several references to places, events, and characters that I was completely lost on. I can remember a moment towards the end when a bunch of old dudes show up and the game lingered in these long, loving shots of them practically holding for an applause break. You remember these guys, right? The bald guy looks like one of my grandpa's old poker buddies. I mean, I wasn't expecting to see him there of all people, but I can't say I'm excited. But you know what? I'll take him. Hell, I'll take anybody over these bland as fucking paced main characters I'm stuck with. Ugh. You know, I've often heard Marcus Phoenix being praised as a compelling character. I mean, since I haven't played any of the previous games, I can't say if that's true or not, but I will say one thing, any character he does possess was not passed down genetically. Oh god. AJ or CJ or whatever his fucking name was is ridiculously boring, and so are his little Scooby-Doo gang of wannabe smartasses. Seriously, the only thing these assholes were missing was a talking dog, and for the final boss to say he'd have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. Right before I sawed his face in half. It's a script that tries to come off a little Whedon-y, but the characters are so stock and uninteresting, they make Nathan Drake's gallery of fuckwits look like classical Shakespeare. Hell, the only character I gave two shits about was Marcus himself, but only because it was cute as hell seeing him in the whole Danny Glover, I'm getting too old for this shit kind of shtick. I mean, hell, given all the poorly executed snark in this script, I was half expecting to hear a "I'm not even supposed to be here today" from the poor old guy. Not that these guys are given much of a story to go off of anyway. Actually, I mentioned Uncharted, and this game kinda has that series problem, and that the stories don't feel like it's something someone actually sat down to write. A narrative to convey to us in any sort of way. It just feels like a bunch of set pieces all held together with duct tape and spit. You know, it kind of has that explosive but insanely cynical theme park ride sort of vibe to it. I almost feel like some jerk with a camera should be reviewing this game, you know? And the combat, while well executed enough, did just feel crazy generic. I know this is the game that practically introduced and perfected the whole chest-high wall shooter thing, but given that this whole system of combat has been around for literally a decade now, it's beyond stale. If anything, it feels held back by the traits it so greedily has to cling to. I mean, after playing stuff like Doom and Overwatch this year, this thing shouldn't even be allowed to be in the same room. I mean, come on. And I'm sorry, but I hated the weird sections of the game where it would suddenly switch to tower defense mode. Yeah, because that's why I bought Gears of War, to play Clash of fucking Clans. Especially when the game would give me exactly enough credits to build one turret, one barbed wire fence, and leave me with a ton of extra credits that I could happily use to go fuck myself. I mean, I get why it's here. It's supposed to be a taste of that tasty online horde mode I keep hearing so much about, but like, if I can be real with you guys, I didn't even bother. Maybe this kind of thing is better in PvP, but these sections were my absolute least favorite part of the game. And the whole pitch of, "Hey, wanna play this online with shouty, screamy 8-year-olds for $60 a year?" No, I'm good, homie. Overall, the game does have its strengths. Despite its paper-thin plot and its characters being bland as a white toast, plain yogurt, and cum sandwich, the game has this very enjoyable B-movie kind of feel. It's one part big dumb action movie and another part big dumb horror movie. And as a fan of They Live, I can totally get behind that. But unlike They Live, this doesn't have nearly enough kick-ass to hold my interest for anything longer than 1, maybe 2 playthroughs. I don't know. I would still recommend picking it up if you don't have any of the other Gears of War titles, or you need to catch up on the stuff you missed. I mean, $60 for 5 games is a pretty damn good deal no matter how you slice it. But should you drop $350 on a slim and tasty boner just to pick it up? Hell no. In fact, just save up your money and buy a decent gaming PC. Like I should have bloody well done. Thanks, Microsoft. Gears of War 4 gets 3 Scooby-Doo characters out of 5.